What's going on, everybody? It's Nick Payne with the Face Mask Podcast, and today, let's talk about maybe the most difficult rookie running back to project. 49ers draft pick, Trey Sermon, out of Ohio State. Third-round pick of San Francisco. They traded up in the draft to get Sermon, so he has day two capital. Started his college career at Oklahoma, finished it with the Buckeyes, and now enters a very interesting and dynamic running back room in San Francisco, but also one that has a ton of depth. But taking a look at the depth chart that the team has put out, heading into training camp, it looks like Sermon is the RB2 on the team. Raheem Mostert is listed as the starter, and by all accounts is healthy going into training camp, but was tending to what some reports were calling a minor knee injury during OTAs. And of course, Mostert has a somewhat extensive injury history at this point. Again, Sermon is listed as the RB2, so when you have that role in San Francisco, you're locked in to have some type of role, and we'll get into that shortly. Wayne Gallman, 49ers signed to a one-year deal, filled in for the Giants last year and led them in rushing after Saquon Barkley's season-ending injury in week 2. He joins the team. And then there's Jeff Wilson, who flashed for them last year, but suffered a torn meniscus in the offseason at the end of May. He's now projected to miss 4 to 6 months. So right now, the best-case scenario as far as his timeline to return is October. And by all accounts, this is a serious injury. So Wilson's probably looking more along the lines of the 6-month timetable, not the 4-month timetable. So the entire first half of Wilson's season at best, or at least, is in jeopardy. So that's going to open things up for a guy like Sermon. They also have Elijah Mitchell, who they drafted out of Louisiana, and then JaMycal Hasty, who I've sort of become something of a cult supporter, follower of Hasty, but it's looking like he's, if not a practice squad guy, he could just be outright released from the team, unless there's an injury, or it might take a couple of injuries at this point. So, by all accounts, right now, the 49ers look to be planning to utilize primarily Mostert and Trey Sermon as their running backs this year. Again, San Francisco will use 3, 4, 5 running backs throughout the season, but also they've had some just a bad run of injury luck. So maybe that trend, finally is stopped. Because I would imagine they would want to utilize their most talented options in the backfield. This is an offense, though, and this might be related somewhat to the strain of bad luck with injuries, but this is an offense that under Kyle Shanahan has never really had a bell cow back. There hasn't been any running backs in San Francisco that has gotten 200 carries in a season under Shanahan. So that's a potential knock against Sermon that's out of his control. But again, at the end of the day, cream rises to the crop. So if Sermon proves to be the most talented player in this backfield, he's going to get the work. But being number 2 on the depth chart going into training camp, he's going to have to prove it. He doesn't have the starter role just yet. But let's look at some pros and cons of his situation, and then we'll try to divulge from there. Number 1, I already mentioned, Sermon has the draft capital on his side. He's a day 2 running back, and the 49ers traded up to get him. That's always good. Obviously, anytime a player is drafted by the team, you would think the team wants to plan for them. But if the team trades up, that means they're identifying that player as a piece that they want. And with the way the 49ers run the football, or have run the football in years past, Sermon looks to be a big part of what they want to do on offense. Number 2, Trey Sermon, as a running back, can pass block. According to Pro Football Focus, Trey Sermon was in the game in college as a pass blocker for 241 snaps. He allowed 1 sack. 1 out of 241. That's damn good. So if you can pass block, if you have the chops to pass block as a running back in the NFL, you're going to see work. Coupled with the fact that Trey Sermon he's not the best pass catching running back in this class, but he can do it. You have to imagine he's got the third down role locked up already. When you can both run a route and stay in to block, there's no reason for you to come off the field on third down. And on top of that, the defense can't necessarily key on one or the other if you have a guy who can do both. So that's a great start for Sermon right away before he even takes a snap at training camp, much less in a game. So he absolutely has at least that role on his side. I say at least. He's going to be involved on on multiple downs, multiple occasions, throughout the season. Just want to highlight that very important note. Number 3, by all accounts, and he proved this in college, Sermon works well in an outside zone scheme. That's the offense that the 49ers run. That's how Kyle Shanahan utilizes his running backs, the outside zone. So Sermon is a natural fit. Again, another positive. That's another feather in his cap. Those are the pros. The cons, I already mentioned. It's a crowded running back room, even with the Jeff Wilson injury. Mostert's going to be involved. Wayne Gallman is going to have some role. Elijah Mitchell is likely looking at a reserve role unless there's another injury, but he'll make the team just based on the fact that he was drafted, but he's going to be fourth behind the other three healthy guys, and then he may be fifth if Wilson is able to come back at some point. But then that would then just further crowd the room, which could eat into Sermon's production. But they want to get him on the field. They want to utilize him. They didn't trade up for nothing. But it is a crowded room, and it is not a situation where San Francisco has given any one player bell cow work for several seasons now. So he's got that going against him. Number two, maybe this is a little nitpicky, but I just want to highlight every potential scenario here. If Trey Lance is the starter, and he will be at some point sooner rather than later, you have to wonder if Trey Lance is going to vulture rushing production away from all of the running backs, not just Sermon. And he's likely to do that, which then further dilutes the amount of opportunities that any one player may have. So it could be a situation where the 49ers just want to utilize Mostert, Sermon, and Trey Lance in the run game, but they still have other pieces back there. So just be aware of there are a lot of heads that are perfectly capable as runners in this offense. So that would be the only thing that I caution, in addition to the fact that it being a crowded room. But some of that could be attributed to a bad string of luck as far as injuries goes. At the end of the day, it's always a good sign when a team trades up for a player. And with a team that has such a dynamic rushing attack as San Francisco, identifying a running back on day 2 that they want is a big deal for me. I think Sermon has a relatively clear path to work, but I don't see him having a bell cow role, which is why why his ADP is around 71 on Underdog Fantasy. So, you can regularly get him end of the 6th, 7th round, which is pretty solid value. But as of right now, he is his team's RB2. He can absolutely ascend to an RB1 role with them, with the 49ers. And it's not so crazy or far-fetched, especially given the injury history of Raheem Mostert. So Sermon's path is clear, but he's just going to have to outwork a lot of other guys. That's all. But we're talking about a rookie that the team identified. That shouldn't be an issue. What is the issue is just the fact that he probably won't get bell cow work unless there are multiple injuries. So that would be my one caution with Sermon for 2021 redraft. For Dynasty, he's an awesome prospect. He's the 5th highest graded running back coming out of the draft, and he was the 4th running back drafted. So he's got the capital on his side, and he's got he landed in a good spot for rushing production. He proved he can run after the catch. He was a little inconsistent in college, but he absolutely flashed his talent. And specifically when he was with Ohio State, he came through in big moments. Now, he was knocked out of the national championship game early due to injury, but that's not a concern. That was a shoulder injury. That's not a concern as he enters his rookie season. So while it could be a crowded backfield, and while he's not going to be a bell cow, I think he can return high-end RB3 production, low-end RB2 production, but I have a hard time predicting that he makes it into the top 25 by season's end. So if you're deep at running back in redraft, by all means, if you're able to get him as your RB4, yeah, go for it. He should be a great bye week fill in a lot of weeks. And he's absolutely somebody that, unless it all goes south for him, he'll be on rosters all season. And then for Dynasty, he's an excellent asset who, again, will be startable some weeks, but I would not say all. And most likely week 1, again, unless he is the guy who is atop of the depth chart going into week 1, he's going to be on benches in all formats, but it's a long season. The draft capital is in his favor, and the landing spot, I think, will play well to his strengths. Would I take him as my RB4? Sure. I would feel nervous if he was my RB3. So I'm not really boosting Trey Sermon. I'm not really fading Trey Sermon, but I'm not really targeting Trey Sermon. I guess I'm kind of just in like Trey Sermon purgatory right here. So I hope that this is somewhat helpful in some capacity, but I guess I'm saying I'm more leaning. I'm in a wait and see mode with Trey Sermon. Therefore, I may not be drafting him all that much in 2021 redraft. But I've been wrong before. I could absolutely get burned by this, and he pays dividends. It's just there's a lot happening in this backfield, and there's a lot of moving parts. So just naturally, I feel inclined to stay away, especially with the looming insertion of Trey Lance into the lineup, who himself will vulture rushing production. But we'll see. With all that said, what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? I guess that my feeling is on Trey Sermon is that I'm kind of lukewarm, maybe kind of wait and see mode. Do you disagree in either direction? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you in the sense that, do you think he's going to be awesome? Do you think he's the 49ers RB1 week 1? Do you think he's the 49ers RB1 by midseason or after their bye week? And for that reason, are you drafting him with confidence? Or maybe you're completely out on him. Maybe you're more out on him than I would say that I am. Whatever the situation, whatever you're feeling, whatever your argument, I would love to hear from you. Drop some comments below. We can have a conversation about this. Till then, this is Nick Payne with the Face Mask Podcast, producing fantasy-related content for you each and every day. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for listening.